George Soros was born Georgi Schwartz in Budapest, Hungary in 1932. His early life was marked by war and the shadow of the Holocaust. As a Jewish teenager during the Nazi occupation, Soros survived through subterfuge. His father arranged false identity papers, allowing the family to escape the Holocaust. This experience instilled in Soros a deep skepticism of totalitarian power and a belief in the moral imperative to resist it. After the war, Soros emigrated to England and enrolled at the London School of Economics, where he studied under philosopher Karl Popper. Popper's book, The Open Society and Its Enemies, became the cornerstone of Soros's worldview. Popper argued that no political or scientific theory could claim absolute truth, and that only societies open to criticism and change are truly just. Soros adopted this as both a personal creed and a political mission. This pursuit would shape not only his philanthropy, but also his approach to markets and global affairs. So, is Soros a savior or a saboteur? He's used his fortune to support democracy, human rights, and dissent, often where it's most dangerous. Supporters see him as a vital counterweight to authoritarianism and propaganda. Critics argue that no billionaire should have so much power to shape politics and society. The billionaire's dilemma, using private wealth for public good, can look undemocratic even when intentions are noble. Soros embodies the contradictions of our age, a product of capitalism trying to fix its flaws. He's both a symbol of the problem and to many part of the solution. His story isn't good versus evil. It's about power, philosophy, and the struggle for open societies. Whether you see him as hero or villain says as much about your worldview as it does about Soros himself. In the end, George Soros remains one of the most fascinating and misunderstood figures of our time. Soros is a paradox, a billionaire speculator who claims the moral high ground as a global reformer. His legacy is inseparable from the fate of the open society he has spent his life defending. How does Soros respond to being cast as a global villain? With radical transparency, his foundations publicly list their grants and goals. He writes books, gives interviews, and debates critics head-on. Soros admits he's using his fortune to shape the world, but insists it's for democracy and human rights. He argues his influence is open and accountable, unlike secretive corporate lobbying. For Soros, transparency is both a defense and a challenge to his critics. Still, conspiracy theories persist, immune to facts. Soros keeps working, seemingly unfazed by the attacks. He sees the backlash as proof he's challenging the forces he's fought against his whole life. With great influence comes fierce backlash. Critics say Soros profited from economic misery. His Black Wednesday trade hurt ordinary Britons. Others accuse his philanthropy of meddling in sovereign nations, pushing a progressive globalist agenda. Leaders from Hungary to the US have made him a political target. But the criticism doesn't stop there. Soros is the subject of wild conspiracy theories, often laced with anti-Semitism. He's blamed for everything from protest movements to financial crises. Critics think he polarizes culture by financing minority groups like LGBTQ, which the majority of the population may oppose. Painted as a shadowy puppet master. These narratives are powerful because they offer a simple villain for complex problems. The internet has supercharged these myths, making Soros a lightning rod for hate. The reality, he's a polarizing figure, but not the all-powerful boogeyman of internet lore. The truth is far more complicated and far more human. Soros didn't wait to become a philanthropist. He started giving in the 1970s. He funded scholarships for black students in apartheid South Africa and supported dissidents in communist Eastern Europe. His Open Society foundations became a global force, backing democracy, human rights, and independent journalism in over 120 countries. Soros treats philanthropy like investing, experiment, learn, adapt. He looks for leverage points, places where a small intervention can spark big change. The OSF is a social laboratory, not just a charity. Soros has given away over 32 billion, making OSF one of the world's largest private foundations. He sees no contradiction between making money and giving it away. Both are about correcting systemic flaws. As an investor, he profited from market irrationality. As a philanthropist, he fights political and social irrationality. For Soros, wealth is a tool for change and an obligation to act. In 1992, Soros made history by breaking the Bank of England. Britain tried to keep the pound strong, pegged to the Deutsche Mark, despite weak economic fundamentals. Soros saw the pound was overvalued, a government promise at odds with reality. He bet billions that Britain would be forced to devalue. As Soros and others shorted the pound, selling pressure mounted. The Bank of England spent billions defending the currency but couldn't win. On Black Wednesday, Britain gave up, the pound crashed. Soros's fund made over $1 billion in a day. He didn't just predict the crisis, his actions helped trigger it. This was reflexivity in action, perception, reality, and a well-timed bet. The trade made him a legend and a villain to many. But Soros's next act would be even more ambitious. Soros's financial edge, a concept called reflexivity, which he applied not just to markets but to politics and society as well. Unlike traditional economists, he saw markets not as mirrors of reality but as forces that shape reality. Investors' beliefs can drive prices up or down, creating self-fulfilling booms and busts. When perception and reality diverge, bubbles form and eventually burst. Soros hunted for these disconnects, betting big when the crowd was wrong. He wasn't predicting the future. He was exposing flawed beliefs in the present. His insight: markets are driven by human psychology, not cold logic. This made him one of the most successful and feared investors ever. He famously said, "It is possible to perceive a bubble and to ride it." Soros's fortune was built on understanding how markets and people get things wrong, and nowhere was this clearer than in his most famous trade. At the heart of the Soros debate is a profound paradox. Can a man who amassed billions through speculative finance be a credible champion of justice and equity? Soros's defenders argue that he has used his wealth more responsibly than most, committing it to causes that expand freedom, knowledge, and human dignity. His critics argue that no amount of charitable giving can absolve the harm caused by financial speculation and market manipulation. Soros himself grapples with this tension. He sees financial markets as inherently unstable and morally neutral tools that can be used for good or ill. He acknowledges the damage caused by capital flows and currency crises, but argues that the real problem is the failure of regulation, not the existence of markets themselves. The deeper question: can philanthropy serve as a corrective to capitalism's excesses? Soros believes it can, but only if guided by humility and accountability. In that sense, he represents a rare model of capitalist, self-critique one, willing to engage with the consequences of his own wealth. At the London School of Economics, Soros discovered Karl Popper's The Open Society and Its Enemies. Popper argued that society is claiming absolute truth like Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union breed oppression. The antidote? An open society, one that values freedom, human rights, and constant self-correction. No one has a monopoly on truth. Democracy and critical thinking are essential. Soros embraced Popper's idea of fallibility. Everyone, even experts, can be wrong. This philosophy became Soros's mission. Defend open societies, fight authoritarianism, and always question the system. He named this foundation after Popper's work, aiming to put these ideals into practice worldwide. For Soros, the open society wasn't theory, it was survival. His life's work would be a global experiment in defending these principles. And his investment strategy would reflect the same skepticism of certainty. As the world faces rising authoritarianism, disinformation, and institutional decay, George Soros stands as both a beacon and a battleground. To his supporters, He is a visionary who foresaw the fragility of liberal democracy and committed his fortune to defending it. To his detractors, he is the symbol of a global elite that undermines national identity and democratic sovereignty. The truth, as always, is more complex. Soros is a man of contradictions, a speculator who distrusts markets, a philanthropist who reshapes societies, a critic of power who wields immense power himself. His theory of reflexivity applies not just to markets, but to the myth of Soros itself, where perception and reality are entangled in ways that make simple judgments impossible. In the end, whether George Soros is remembered as a savior or a saboteur may depend less on his actions than on the fate of the open society he has spent his life trying to defend